regard to these 4 exercises, what you can do is you can try out every single one of these different variations, find out which one you are weakest in. So do as many repetitions as you can in each position, whichever one you find that you are fatiguing the most. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be taking you through an exercise demonstration, and it's going to be the 4-part glute series. With regard to the gluteus maximus, this exercise right over here is going to be for the deep fibers of the gluteus maximus, and I'm not going to get too into the anatomy of the glutes because I already did that in another video, and I actually covered this in another video. It was in my 10 years of sciatica gone video. If you haven't seen that, I can include a link right up over here. But basically, when it comes to the glutes, if we were to imagine that this is your butt right over here, and we had the gluteus maximus, which is on the posterior side of your body, we could subdivide that into halves. So if we were to cut it right down in half, we would have the lateral portion of your glutes, and then we would have the medial portion. And then within that, we could also further subdivide it. So if we were to cut it down into 4, on the lateral aspect, we have the lateral most fibers, or the lateral of the lateral fibers. And then inside of that would be the medial fibers of the lateral aspect. So we have the lateral fibers and the medial lateral fibers. And then on the medial fibers, if we were to subdivide that in half, on the outside we would have the lateral version of the medial fibers, and then closest to the crack is going to be the medial fibers of the gluteus maximus. So we have the lateral fibers, the medial lateral fibers, the lateral medial fibers, and the medial fibers. For this exercise, basically just think of it as the first variation, second, third, and fourth. And now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to have Kat lay down on her back and I'm going to demonstrate the exercise for you guys. This first variation of the 4-part glute series is going to target the lateral fibers, meaning the ones closest to the trochanter of the hip. With regard to the glutes, the main actions are going to be extension of the hip. It's also going to be responsible for abduction of the hip and also external rotation of the hip. So depending on how exactly we play with the internal and external rotation and the levels of adduction and abduction, that's going to dictate which fibers we are going to be using the most and recruiting the most when we do the actual exercise. So for the lateral fibers, what we want to do, Kat's going to lay down on her back. I'm going to place this business card right in between her knees. If you don't have a business card, put anything. You could put a piece of paper, some type of currency, but you want to make sure that you maintain contact with the knees. So squeeze that together, make sure it doesn't drop. Then the feet, you want them hip width apart. Next, with the navicular, which is the bone closest to the medial arch of the foot, you want to push the navicular down into the ground. And then next thing, now that we have everything set up on the bottom, we want to start to set up the top. With the arms, we want to place the arms at the glenohumeral angle. If you don't know where that is, it's roughly at the level of your forehead or slightly higher. So Kat is just going to extend her arms out to the side and place her arms right at the level of the forehead. Then with the head, what we want to do is keep the chin tucked in and then push the crown of the head away from the body. And then with the eyes, she's going to look between her thighs, and that's going to put the dura mater under tension. Now that we are in the final position, next thing we are going to do to actually initiate the exercise, Kat is going to do retroversion of the pelvis. So she's going to tuck her pelvis underneath her, flatten her spine down to the ground, and then if you are able to, you want to be able to roll your spine 1 vertebrae at a time. So you want to start by lifting your sacrum off the ground, then your L5, L4, L3, L2, L1, and keep doing that until you get into full hip extension. So right now, Kat, you're just going to tuck your butt underneath you and roll 1 vertebrae at a time, nice and high, as high as you can go. With this exercise right over here, oh, right there, she lost the business card. So this is why this is going to be really good. It acts as a biofeedback mechanism. So if they ever drop it, you know that they're losing the position. Make sure that they don't drop it. So try to raise again as high as you can. If you can't get into full hip extension, that's not a problem. You want to work with what you have. Don't sacrifice losing the knees in order to get full hip extension. And you can go back down and just do a few repetitions. So with regard to this exercise right over here, if you're not able to roll the spine 1 vertebrae at a time, that's not a problem. The main point is that you want to try to roll 1 vertebrae at a time. If everything comes up at once, that's fine. Just have the intention of rolling 1 vertebrae at a time. So on the way up, first sacrum lifts off the ground, then L5, L4, L3, L2, L1, all the way up, and then it reverses on the way down. So you want to drop your L1 to the floor, L2, L3, L4, L5, and then your sacrum. And that is for the lateral fibers, or the first variation. The second variation is going to be for the medial lateral fibers. So this one is a little bit closer to the midline, but it's still on the lateral aspect of the gluteus maximus. For this one, the only thing that we are going to change is instead of having the feet apart, Kat is going to place her feet together. Everything else is exactly the same. So the navicular, you're pushing down into the ground, so you're flattening out that arch. You're keeping the knees together. You're maintaining retroversion of the pelvis, flattening out the spine. The arms are at the glenohumeral angle. Chin is tucked in. Crown of the head, you are pushing away from your body. With your eyes, you are looking between your thighs to put the dura mater under tension. And once again, she's going to just roll and unroll the spine and go into hip extension. Once again, when she's doing this one right over here, you want to really make sure that the knees are being squeezed together and the business card doesn't drop. So you only want to go as high as you can. If you end up losing the business card, you went too high or you just weren't focusing on squeezing your knees together. So really focus on squeezing the knees together for this exercise. And this is the second variation, or the medial-lateral fibers of the gluteus maximus. Next, we are going to go into the third variation. For the third variation, this is the one that you will see most people doing in a gym setting, and this is for the lateral-medial fibers. So this one right over here, it's a little bit closer to the inside. So remember, if we have the outer half and the middle half, with regard to the middle half, this one is a little bit to the outside. For this one right over here, Kat is going to place her feet shoulder width apart. And then her knees are also going to be shoulder width apart. Everything else is exactly the same. The medial arch with the navicular pushing down into the ground. Retroversion of the pelvis, flat spine, shoulders at the glenohumeral angle, chin tucked in, crown of the head out, looking between your thighs to put the dura mater under tension. And once again, she's going to go into retroversion of the pelvis and raise one vertebrae at a time from L5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then reverse on the way down. This one right over here, for most people, this is going to be the easiest variation of all the different glute exercises that I'm going to be showing you right now. But this is for the lateral medial fibers, and this is the third variation. Next, we are going to target the medial fibers. This one is going to be closest to the crack, and for this one right over here, Kat is going to place her feet together. And with this one over here, what we want to do is she's going to spread her knees as far apart as she can without letting the navicular come off the ground. So if you notice that your arch comes up, you went too far. So for her right now, her arch is starting to come up, so she's going to close up a little bit. More right there. So right here for her is going to be a great starting point. For this one over here, everybody is going to have a different level of abduction and external rotation that they can play with, depending on how exactly your foot and ankle mechanics are. So for Kat right over here, this is a great position. Everything else is exactly the same. So navicular's down, the knees are maintaining this position, retroversion of the pelvis, the lumbar spine is flat on the floor, arms at the glenohumeral angle, she has her chin tucked in, the crown of the head is pushing out, and then with her eyes, she's looking between her thighs to put the dura mater under tension. And now she's going to tuck her pelvis underneath her, going to retroversion of the pelvis, and one vertebrae at a time, she's going to lift up to the sky and then move back down. And then you could come back down. And this right over here is the fourth variation, or the medial fibers of the deep gluteus maximus. With regard to these four exercises, what you can do is you can try out every single one of these different variations, find out which one you are weakest in. So do as many repetitions as you can in each position. Whichever one you find that you are fatiguing the most, that's going to be the one that you could use as your starting point. Another thing you could do is if you find that they're all equally difficult, then you could do one set of each one. And with each variation, what you would want to do is try to build up to where you are doing three sets of 50 repetitions. That's 5-0, not 1-5. The reason we are doing 50 repetitions is because this is going to be really great to use as a postural exercise. A lot of people are going to have an anteriorly tilted pelvis. When you have an anteriorly tilted pelvis, a lot of times the glute is going to be very, very weak and it's not going to be activated properly. One of the things that the glute does, aside from hip extension, is it also does retroversion of the pelvis because it attaches to the superior aspect of the ilium. So when you get the glute nice and strong, what's going to happen is if you do have an anterior pelvic tilt, this is going to help to restore the natural tilt in your pelvis. But that's pretty much it for this video. Those are the four different variations of the deep fibers of the gluteus maximus. Give them all a try, see which one you're weakest in. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.